Welcome to the Dog Nerd Show, where we geek out over our best friends. I'm Megan.
And I'm Michael, and this is a show about all things dog.
Hey, everybody. So today we have a little bit interesting show. It's probably not going to be as long, but something that we've talked about recently as our guys have been aging is what would we have done differently? And I don't want to get wrapped up in, the beating ourselves up over what we should have done better or could have done better or so on and so forth. But I think every pet owner, especially when it's your first, there's Riley, especially when it's your first adult pet and, you're learning and you're growing and you make mistakes. And I'm sure for those of you who have children, you do the same thing with your kids. There's not a manual for life. So we decided we would each talk about 5 things that we would have done differently when raising our dogs.
Yeah, so a couple of things that people will do is beat themselves up over things, and we're not promoting that. We've all made mistakes, so this is just for future reference. And if you're thinking about getting a pet for the first time, maybe using some of these ideas.
Yeah, hopefully we can help you so you don't make these same mistakes. And before we continue, you've got a Finlay or Riley hair on the brim of your cap. I had to get that off. So yeah, our attempt with all of these videos is to help people make the best decisions when adding a pet to their family, or whether or not it's the right decision. So if you like these videos, please subscribe. Please drop us a comment about what you would do differently. And we always love to see pictures of your pets. So please share those as well. All right. So do you want to start or?
Sure. So I think the first thing I would do is I would have researched food. And I would have probably in the beginning, mostly with Finlay, I would have started with a better food than we did. That being said, we never really did give too bad of food. It's just, we could have done better.
Yeah. We always gave them better food than just like the average, not going to name any brands, but you guys know what I mean. So we always went for something a little more expensive and higher quality, but yeah.
But even those things you've got to watch.
Yeah.
Because you're a lot of times you may be paying for branding. So
true. And honestly, our diets have gotten so much better than when 16 years ago when we got Finlay. So we read labels more for ourselves now. So I think that's a maturing factor. Do you want to go through your list first, and then we'll see how many?
Yeah, and then we'll see
items?
If they overlap, because we did not share our notes prior to this,
Nope.
So we wanted to make sure that we kept that autonomous. So,
anonymous.
Anonymous?
Yeah.
Is that is anonymous right?
Well, not really anonymous, but
anyway,
it's not autonomous. We wanted to keep it separate so that we would have no influence over each other on our answers.
Yeah, exactly. So anonymous. And I will cut that out, by the way.
No,
or maybe I won't. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it in.
I think they like it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
So
hopefully people are laughing at us.
I think I would have done more activities. We did some, like we did Earth Dog with Finlay, but that was once or twice a year. We attempted to do some agility, but that for some other reasons we quit doing that. I would think I would have done a little bit more activities, maybe if it was just hiking or anything like that with them.
And we did go on lots of hikes when they were younger. We've got some great parks near us where we would do some nice trail walks with them, and that was always fun. But yeah, I wish we had done more of that too.
Yeah. So, I would, and this is a very, I don't know how to say the word, but it's a very personal experience. I would have never given Rawhide Treats. That was one of the scariest days of our marriage, but it was, hearing your dog grasp for air and both our hands bloodied from trying to remove the rawhide that was clogged into his throat.
Ugh.
That was so scary. So I would never give treats like that ever again.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because this is an educational opportunity. So, rawhides they're not healthy, for one. In fact, our breeder had said, oh, it's kind of like giving your dog ice cream. So, it's not a healthy treat. And I think we gave rawhides to Finlay because he had so much energy and he was an only dog at the time. Well, actually, when he choked on it, he was not. But if you do not supervise your dog when it's chewing on a bone or a rawhide or anything like that, I just saw a friend of mine rescued a new puppy, and on my friend's birthday, she had to take the dog to the vet. And I was like, oh no, what happened? Well, the puppy ate something, and, puppies will do that. So, even with puppies, you have to be so careful. So, but with rawhides, what had happened in our case was it was like the round, like cigar shaped, we would say,
Yep.
rawhide. So it was just like a round tube, and it had gotten small enough that Finlay was able to put the whole thing in his mouth, and it had gotten soft enough that I don't know. All I know is that I was sleeping. It was a Saturday morning, and I heard him screaming for me like bloody murder. And this one does not get amped up over a lot of stuff. I'm usually the one that freaks out over nothing. And it was a definite, like, I hopped out of bed, didn't even put my glasses on, ran downstairs, and he told me, Finlay's choking on a bone. Finlay's choking on a bone. And we had already decided that we were not going to continue giving rawhides. So I was thinking it was a nylabone. I was like, in my, 6:30 a.m. fog, I was like, what is going on? And so then he said, no, it was a rawhide. I guess Finlay had been barking, and Michael was afraid that he was going to wake me, which he didn't.
Yeah.
So he had given him a rawhide, and it got lodged like sideways in the back of his throat. So there already had been some vomiting. Riley, since we've told you, she's very empathetic, and Michael was holding Finlay. Riley's jumping up at Finlay because she knows he's in distress. She knows we're in distress, so she's freaking out. And I'm like searching his mouth, and there's nothing in there. It was lodged sideways in the back of his throat. And as Michael said, we're trying to clear his airway, and we can't. And unfortunately, we knew nothing about pet CPR or, safety, Heimlich, whatever. So we didn't know how to get it out of there. So I'm trying to like clear it from the back, and we still have scars on our fingers from the puncture wounds. And so we're bleeding. Finley's, in bad shape. And so, oh God, it's taking me back.
Yeah. Let me, so we weren't able to actually clear it, but it went the other way.
Well, I was getting to,
okay.
So what happened was Finlay was, choking and not making any noises or anything. He actually started to lose consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was it caused his throat to relax, and then the rawhide slid down his throat. And I still remember Michael laying him on his side on the floor right over there. And I just watched his little stomach, and it was breathing, and he hopped up and he ran under the kitchen table because he was freaked out. And we both sat down on the floor and just busted into tears, like backs up against the stove, crying, watching Finlay, watching us. And at that point it was, I guess enough time had passed, or we had to wait until the vet opened, or we called the emergency vet or whatever. I don't even remember, but they said, okay, well, the good news is he's okay, but now you have to worry about a blockage. So what happens with that is an indication of a blockage is they drink water and they throw it back up. They eat food and they throw it back up. And, of course, they're not eliminating. So it was actually my dad's birthday dinner and Michael that evening. And so Michael stayed home with Finlay and monitored him. And thank God we did not have, I was on the hotline with Jesus at the time all of this was happening. I was like, this can't happen. This can't happen. It was in the 2007-8 downturn of the economy. We were going through hard times with that. And I was like, this cannot happen. It cannot happen. And by the grace of God, he was okay. So all of that said, do not feed your dog rawhides. They're not good nutritionally, and they can be very, very dangerous.
Extremely dangerous.
We could have lost him. So learn from us on that one.
So that was number 3 on my list of 5, and probably the one that like Megan said, she was going back. I was going back too, because it was such a traumatic experience for everyone involved. Number 4 on my list is, and this is Finlay Riley really is the one that I should have done better at, and that was socializing and or re-socializing Finlay after some bad experiences with dogs next door and dogs across the street. Before we had these experiences with a neighbor who just really didn't take care of their animals.
And you guys know we've talked about that before.
Right. So before that, Finlay was relatively social, and he would go to doggy daycare, and he loved playing with the bigger dogs. But after...
let me interrupt real quick. When we went to our first Earth Dog event, it was like a lot of the other terriers were very territorial and snapping at each other. And Finlay was just like, man, this is awesome. Hey, everybody, how's it going? What's going on?
Yeah, so he was very socialized, and he is actually a canine good citizen qualified dog. He went through that course. But because of experiences he's had, and we've all had experiences of post-traumatic stress, Finlay has developed fear. He doesn't dislike other dogs. He just fears them, and he reacts when he sees another dog in a negative way, or what we would perceive as a negative way.
Yeah.
And Riley, she was kind of born into that. And so Riley's never really learned different.
Yeah, she was a puppy so our neighbor had one aggressive dog and that had issues, but then she got another dog, and the two of them together were extremely aggressive. And I think we told you she didn't want to fence in when we fenced in, so she actually would tether them with a leash, and that causes more aggression. So when Riley came along, those two dogs were already there, very aggressive at the fence. They would fence fight. Finlay would bark back, and Riley learned, we go and bark at this fence. In fact, to this day, she is aggressive at the one fence and not the other. There is a dog on the other side and neither of the dogs that are there now are aggressive at all, but they're dogs.
They're excitable, but like a normal dog would be.
Yeah. Like the dog that's on the aggression side now is, it just, I think, likes to come out and run up and down the fence and bark with our dogs. But the one over here will bark, and they'll go over there and bark, but not at all like they will at the one side of the fence that they learned is the aggressive side. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and what it's done is it's taken, so if we go for walks or anything like that, and this is another pet peeve of mine. I know we're talking about what we'd done would do differently. If you're taking your dog out on a walk in a park or wherever, don't assume that the other dog that you see someone else walking wants anything to do with your dog.
Yeah.
So if you're using, first of all, I'm not a big fan of them, but if you're using the flexi leashes, rein that thing in, because we end up having to stop and tell people, hey, our dogs are afraid of other dogs. They don't get along very well. It's probably not a good idea unless you just want your dog to get bit to have them come get in our dog's face. So I'm begging you, please use some decorum when you're out on walking around with your dog on a flexi leash or on any leash.
Or not leashed. Like I had an instance in our neighborhood where this golden retriever, I think it was a golden or a golden mix, came bounding towards us. And, I was by myself. I have my two dogs on their leashes, and it comes bounding towards us. And the owner is like, I don't know, like 4 houses down, and screams out, "She's friendly." And I scream back, "Mine aren't." Yeah. And luckily, our dogs were barking enough, and that dog was kind of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't stop and get in their faces. So it worked out well. But, there are leash laws for a reason. And that's a bit. And I think pet owners or dog parents everywhere are giving you a little amen on that one, because I think that's a common issue that we have. Just because your dog is friendly does not mean that the other dog is.
Yeah, and we're not saying that the other dog is defective or just the dog's scared and doesn't. I mean, if somebody you didn't know came running up to you and got,
in your face,
you'd be like, hey, whoa.
Yeah.
So I think it's I think it's a pet peeve of mine. It's also, it would be nice to have the dogs a little more socially, adjusted or socialized. The final one is a simple one, and it's probably an easy one, but it spend more time with them. We all have work we have to do, and some of us get to do, and now that we're going through this pandemic, we're getting to spend a lot of time with our dogs. But we had jobs or have jobs, and you have to go to a place to do that job, and you'd come home and you'd spend a couple hours with our dogs in the evenings. But you're tired, and I would have loved to have had a little more of what we're experiencing now then. And so cherish your time with your family pets, because they are your family members, and spend some time with them. So that's my list.
So that segues perfectly into my list, because my number one is find a work from home job so I could spend more time with them. So I am loving this time with the dogs. And I think back on, when Finlay was a puppy and when Riley was a puppy, and how great it would have been to have just been working from home and having that time with them, to take a little walk on the lunch break and just, I mean, they sleep all day, but having them with me or with us or, wherever they choose to be is just a really nice thing. And you can stop for cuddles, and it's just great. So that's my number one. It'll be interesting how these lists compare. My number two is training. So we did do some really good training with them. However, my notes say post-attack should have re-socialized them. So after they were attacked from the dogs across the street, I wish that we had just gone, actually even before that, I wish that with the aggressive dogs next door, we had just, instead of kind of like, oh, let's walk them when there's not a lot of dogs out, we should have been like, let's walk them when there are a lot of dogs out so we can re-socialize them. So that's a big one for me. And a subheading under that is absolutely zero negative training. So when we started out, we didn't really know much about positive reinforcement training or training in general. And a friend had lent us a book about the monks of New Skeet that they would raise German Shepherd dogs. And there was a lot of like the alpha dog rollover, put your dog on its back so it knows that you're boss. And I did that with Finlay, and I'm embarrassed that I did that with Finlay. When Finlay was pulling, we tried a choke collar. It was awful. Not a prong collar, which is worse, but a choke collar is just as bad. I mean, a harness is all you need and some good training. So I really, really, really feel bad about that. That is somewhere that I feel a sense of guilt for. I mean, I was watching a particular trainer on television that does a lot of negative reinforcement training. And then when I came across It's Me or the Dog and Victoria Stilwell and was seeing what she was able to do positively, it was like mind-boggling. And I opened our minds so much. And we'll have to do a future episode on when we got trained by Victoria Stilwell. Yeah. So that's my number two. My number three is food and nutrition. So another one that we shared.
Kind of crosses over there, yeah.
Yeah. So ideally, I would love to make their food myself. I don't even cook for us. So that is a large task, but feeding only high quality food. And I think we touched on that one pretty well. That really does make a difference, in your pet's longevity. So pay attention to nutrition. Number 4 is more activities, less rawhides. So it's funny that was,
we talked about rawhides.
The same one. And why I put more activities, less rawhides is because like when, and I guess it wasn't so much Riley, because with Riley, she had Finlay. And Finlay, when he was a pup, he didn't have anyone else, and he had a ton of energy. And I wish that I had known about puzzle games, and I wish I had tried like hide and seek with his kibble and things like that to really work his mind, in addition to the walks that we were taking and stuff like that. But we would give him a rawhide to kind of, like a pacifier for a baby.
Well, we were being lazy. To be quite honest with you, we were being lazy. We were tired. We had been working all day, and here this guy had probably been sleeping all day. We come home, he's ready to play. We're ready to chill.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. So again,
it's not good. It's not good for the dog, and it's not good for you either. So.
No, and that's where we talk about like researching the breed. Perhaps a terrier was not the right breed for us because of the way that our lifestyles were. Now, we probably wouldn't change it for the world, because these have been the most incredible dogs we've ever had. Well, I don't know ever, but they're just incredible. We're not gonna rank our dogs, but yeah. So that was my number 4, right? So yes. I did okay, and then my number 5 is desensitize, like the paws and the mouth. So I wish we had regularly brushed our dog's teeth from a young age, or paid more attention to dental care. Now, I know a lot of people that feed raw don't have the problem that people that do not feed raw have, because a raw bone will work away at the gunk on their teeth.
Right.
We've had some bad experiences with raw feeding, with the dogs getting sick and getting really, really sick. So, I'm going to just kind of leave that one there. But if you're not feeding raw and you are feeding a kibble diet, you've got to take care of their teeth. So from a young age, desensitize them to teeth brushing, desensitize them to their paws. Now, we did, touch their paws as puppies a lot, but they really fight us on the nail trims, one of them more than the other.
Yeah.
But just that's something, they both have some dental issues, and I wish we had been a little bit better with that. As you know, dental issues can lead to heart issues. So, it's all connected. So that's my list. It's interesting that most of our items were the same.
Yeah, we truly did not share any information. No. We just both seem to be on the same page because our experience is the same. Yeah. We experienced the raising of these two family members, pets, together, and so we know the problems and we know the issues, and we've talked about them before. So it could almost be predicted what we were going to talk about, I think. But it was interesting. It's how they overlapped and kind of cool.
And we would love to know what you would do differently. So drop a comment below. Let us know. Please, y'all, if we could get you to subscribe to our channel so you could see our episodes as soon as they're ready, that would mean the world to us. We really we have such a mission to make the world a better place for pets, especially dogs, of course. And the more subscribers we get, the more attention the channel gets, and then the more we can start sharing awesome, helpful tips. So we'd love to know what you would do differently. And if you have any comments on what we've shared today, maybe we're missing something glaring that we were like, oh yeah, gosh, we should have done that too.
Yeah.
But that was fun. That was interesting.
It was. And folks, if you're listening to us on a podcast, we appreciate that. We're available on all the podcast services, and
you can review us too.
That's
wonderful.
Exactly what I was going to say. If you would drop a review, that'd be great. It would help us out, and we really appreciate this. And thank you as always. And until next time, we will see you soon.
Yeah, make sure to look for us everywhere, online and social, at Dog Nerd Show, dognerdshow.com, dognerdshow@gmail.com. Bye.